I'm Jonathan Bernstein. I'm executive director of Not in Our Town. Not in Our Town is a Oakland-based nonprofit organization, and our basic mission is to highlight communities coming together to stop hate. We do it by producing quite a few films. We've produced probably about 50 different films, all dealing with different areas of hate. Could be racism, anti-Semitism, homophobia. But what we really focus on are the positive stories of people coming together after a hate incident or a hate crime occurs, and showing that they embrace diversity and support each other. And by highlighting these stories, we feel like we're able to motivate other people to speak out against hatred. So we've been doing this now for 15 years. We'll be coming out with a major film around September of this year called Light in the Darkness, which talks about it was really a horrible hate crime that occurred in Patchogue, New York about 2 years ago, in which a Ecuadorian immigrant was murdered. And it turned out that it was done by 7 local high school kids. The town then comes together and over a period of 2 years puts together things to build communication, dialogue, putting on ethnic festivals and events and things, all in the effort to embrace diversity and learn a lesson from this hate crime. So that will be airing sometime around September of this year, and will be seen all across the country. We'll be putting on all kinds of programs to highlight that film.
Tell us a little bit about what trends you've been seeing with regard to intergroup relations, both in California and nationally. And what are some of the things that you think are influencing intergroup relations for the better and for the worse?
Well, I think one trend that's been happening for some time now is that we're seeing more conflict going on between groups. In the old days, I think hate crime was thought of as something that came primarily from the majority population and was visited upon the minority population. And now you're seeing all kinds of variables going on in which an oppressed group is oppressing another oppressed group, and so on. And so it makes our work a little bit more complicated, and also highlights the fact that we need to be doing more to promote positive intergroup relations kind of across the board.
So it's more than just black and white. There's homophobia, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, anti-immigration type hate incidents going on. It's more than just the traditional black, white on black type of intergroup tensions that we've seen maybe in the past?
Sure. Hate crime affects everyone, no matter what your background. So we all need to be interested in opposing this and figuring out positive ways to confront it.
Well, you've been doing this work for decades, and kudos to you. Not in Our Town brings with it an interesting perspective that might not be so apparent from other groups. Tell me a little bit about how NIOT's role is interesting, especially with how the group started.
Well, I think you're right. We've carved out a niche in this landscape of people working on this issue. Typically a civil rights organization that's interested in opposing hate crime will focus a lot on the hater, on figuring out ways to get the person who's promoting hatred to stop doing what he or she is doing. At Not in Our Town, we're much more focused on the broad community, and we're focused on positive stories instead of kind of the negative stories of hatred. And what I've found is that when you focus on the positive stories, it's much, much easier to mobilize the community to come together and stand against hatred. Focusing on negative stories can be debilitating. It's like watching the local news and seeing all these incessant negative stories about, you've watched the local news before. And this is sort of a similar thing. If we only focus on the negative, it can keep people from taking positive action. If you focus on the positive, it inspires people to want to join you and speak out against hate.
Just in closing, tell us about that first incident that really started Not in Our Town, and how that served as a prototype for other incidents in other communities nationwide.
Sure. Not in Our Town was really started by a group of documentary filmmakers They had been doing, documentaries for PBS and other stations for quite a few years, and they heard about a story up in Billings, Montana, in which a series of hate crimes had occurred. There was a church that was visited by neo-Nazis. Some graffiti was spray painted on the home of a Native American family. And then kind of the culminating incident was when a brick was thrown through the window of a Jewish family's home around Hanukkah time, because they had displayed their menorah there in the window. About 10,000 people came out in Billings and displayed pictures of menorahs in their windows to show solidarity for that family. And these filmmakers went up and did a film about this whole story and what the town did to embrace their diversity and speak out against this hatred. They just thought they were doing this one film and it was going to be a short project. Well, it actually turned into a movement, and here we are now, 15 years later, still making these films and inspiring other people to speak out against hate.
Do you have a speakers bureau as well?
We have a number of people on staff and volunteers who will go out and speak, yes.
Well, thank you so much for the years of service you've done with regard to human relations. Is there anything else that we haven't missed other than thanking you for the wonderful work you've been doing?
No, thank you, Brian.
Thank you so much.